Screws loose, they done strip the bolts on them. Shoulda never sent them to pick up the work for me. Sprayed the park and had my shit inside the car. Marcus Smart boy was shooting with a 36 on him. Said if he wasn't in a rush, they was all goners.
All right. Greetings, Chudlings. Welcome to another episode of Chuddy's Corner, sponsored by Nick Perino Real Estate. Check out nickperino.com for all of your real estate needs, big, small, local, worldwide, outer space. He's got you covered. Nick Perino Real Estate, nickperino.com. It is Saturday, June 1st, and the Celtics have their opponent, the Dallas Mavericks. We're here to break down the Celtics-Mavericks NBA Finals matchup. Chuddy, how are you feeling today, just overall? And then how are you feeling about the matchup?
I'm feeling good overall, a little lost without basketball waiting so long. It really would have been nice to have one more Timberwolves Mavericks game tonight, but alas, what can you do? We'll get through. So, feeling good, just getting impatient.
Yeah, I know it is nuts, this wait. I mean, I know that they set it and they don't move it or anything like that,
Yeah.
And I was kind of mentally ready for it, but now it's like so what is it now, 5 days away? Would that be considered five?
It's not even
6?
finals
Still
week.
just like, I know. Yeah, exactly. Like, it was 11 days when we first won, and now we're about halfway through. So, so the matchup, Celtics, Mavs, I feel like if you had told me like a few, like 2 months ago this would be the matchup, I'd kind of be like over the moon about it. I mean, I still kind of am still pretty confident, but the Mavs have looked really good. Granted, they haven't necessarily, we'll get into, they haven't played someone quite like the Celtics yet, but I don't know. How did you feel about the matchup? I mean, just from like a basketball standpoint, there's a ton of storylines we're going to get into, but just from a basketball standpoint, how do you feel about the matchup?
Right. Well, I think no matter what, it's the NBA Finals, pretty much you're going to be playing a really good team. We've seen the West has been stacked all year long and had, compared to according to who you talked to about the East, there was only one contender in the entire conference, whereas in the West, I mean, you could make at least a decent case for at least 4 and probably as many as, you could talk yourself into maybe even like 6 or 7 teams. So
I feel like going into the playoffs, though, everyone thought it was Nuggets. Like, did anyone think that really going in? Sorry, I just interrupted there, but
no, I mean maybe not, but like less than it was definitely less settled than the East, and I think like the Vegas odds reflected that, and
sure.
There was a lot of teams where it was like we need to see it, but it was like a lot was in place that it was easy enough to talk yourself into, especially compared to some of the Eastern teams. But anyway, having said all that, I think the Mavericks are kind of like a lesser of a lot of evils situation. I think part of that is the matchup, is relatively favorable for the Celtics compared to some of the other teams we could have played. They're, inexperienced, which is a nice bonus. Obviously, we saw the experience kind of playing a factor last time when we got there for the first time, played the Warriors. Now it feels, it's not quite the opposite of that, but other than Kyrie, they really don't have much experience at this stage. It's kind of their first. I know they beat the West Finals a couple years ago, but it feels like it's their first like real run. And like you mentioned, they have been a different team since the trade deadline. I mean, it's crazy to go all the way back to last year. If you recall, the Mavericks tanked their last 2 games of the season to miss the play-in tournament. They had a losing record after the Kyrie trade, and it seemed like this was like borderline disastrous situation. I mean, last year the talking points were like, is Luka going to ask out? Like, how do they fix the situation? Comeback this year, started off like decent, but definitely figured some things out. And then the big trade deadline where they brought in Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, and I think they finished the regular season like 25-5, still only a 5 seed, which again I think speaks to a lot of the balance and at the top of the West, how good of a conference it was overall, and the fact that before the trade deadline, the Mavericks weren't that great. Like they were battling a lot of the season just to stay out of the play, and still. Obviously got hot at the right time, and they've been a different team. Those 2 trades really helped them I think, balance the starting lineup, get a little more consistency in the rotation, and obviously has made a huge difference on the defensive end. So they've become a much better team than they were, but still, like, I would still happily play them over the Nuggets. I still think we match up better with them than the Timberwolves. I still even a little more scared of the Thunder, and then even some other teams from there with specific matchups. Obviously, a healthy Clippers, I think most people viewed as a more legitimate contender. Which, I mean, is a fully healthy Clippers even a thing? I don't know, but I think more. I think they had higher odds.
No one thought that would happen.
But I think even entering the playoffs, they probably had higher odds.
Like if this was like you were simming through the NBA Finals on NBA Live.
Exactly. In 2K with injuries off, the Clippers would probably be a top 3, 4 Finals contender.
Yeah, could be a dynasty.
Right. But so I mean, all things considered, like I said, it's certainly not gonna be an easy series. I'm certainly extremely nervous, as would be the case no matter who we were playing. But I really I'm almost scared of how confident I am and how good I do feel overall about the matchup. I think it's a pretty good one for the Celtics. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I agree. I think it's probably one of the better scenarios we could get. I think there's a little bit the things that creep in your mind, obviously, are like a little bit of like the recency bias type thing where they've just kind of looked good. They go and they take out this Timberwolves team that, 2 weeks ago, everyone was saying, like, is this is like Anthony Edwards, the new like best player in the world? Like, and so, there's a lot of like other ups and downs when you take like the media sort of narratives out of it. Again, I do think it just basically comes down to like, this is a really good matchup for us. We played them twice. We played them. The second time was after the deadline, right?
Yeah.
And we beat them 138-110. First time was 119-110. That was in Dallas. So we've held them to under 110 points both games. We've held them to 110 points in both games. So that's we'll see if they can get over that. But yeah, I mean, I think outside of Luka, I mean, like if he kind of has he's had these games where he has these big numbers, but I don't really know if that's going to be enough to beat what the Celtics can offer. Because when you try to break down who's matching up where, it's just kind of like one of the Jays will be on Luka, and I just feel good about that. And then with Kyrie, it'll be Drew, it'll be Derek White a little bit. They'll probably mix on a few of the on switches and stuff like that. Obviously, he'll face other guys, but I think that is also a matchup that I'm okay with. I know some of those quick guards have given Drew an issue in the past, but I did see a stat that I think Drew was holding him to 23 points a game or something like that, which I mean that's good, right? We would consider that a win. Like if he's is that considered high? I saw the stat and I was like, that doesn't seem so bad. Yeah, I saw the stat and I was like, well, that doesn't seem so bad. But then I was kind of thinking about it, like, well, 23 points, I don't know. But yeah, so they've played head-to-head 24 times, including 4 times in the Eastern Conference semifinals between the Nets and Bucks. Kyrie's averaged 23.4 points, 44% from the floor, 39 from 3. I guess that is kind of decent.
That's right around average for him, probably. Yeah. Overall, that's like solid performance.
Which, again, average Kyrie, I think, that's a win for us, too. So, again, going into it, I'm kind of with you. Like, I feel like I'm a little nervous about how confident I am because all, regular season, it was just kind of like, this is just the grind. Like, we're just, we're playing well. We're seeing good things. We're testing things out. We're taking care of business. And then it's like, the playoffs are here. Now it's going to get, harder for us. And the playoffs, weren't really that hard for us. So, I mean, they weren't at all. We're 12-2. One of those wins was just the crazy Heat game. The other one, again, it's just, it's bound to happen. So it's like, I'm almost, like you said, just nervous how confident, just I mean, this has to be where the challenge comes, right? But then when I think about it, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I don't really see.
Will it?
I don't, and the Vegas again, I think they're a -220 to win the series.
Yeah.
Which I did see. I was looking back at previous series, and the Suns were a -200 to beat the Bucks, which I thought was a little bit interesting. And obviously, so I don't think that we're the Suns, and I don't think this team's the Bucks. But that was kind of the most recent kind of big favorite, or at least equal favorite to us to go in the finals. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel
what were the Nuggets last year? They must have been a way bigger favorite.
Oh no, no, I meant that loss. Yeah. I'm sorry. I should have. Yeah, the Nuggets huge favorite that didn't win because I'm trying to just convince myself there's no way I'm about to be surprised here, right? It's so sorry. Yeah, I didn't say. I think the Nuggets a -460 in the series last year.
Okay.
So,
I mean, some of those Warriors years, obviously, too.
I kind of butchered that one.
No, I got what you're saying.
But that was my point. I'm just trying to be okay, I need to find something here to either affirm my confidence or kind of make me get my guard back up and be ready. Obviously, you're nervous no matter what's the finals. We're at the point, it's 4 wins away. It's going to be the hardest 4 wins we're going to get. So I don't know. I feel good. I feel good about this series, but I feel there's got to be a shoe that's going to drop. It's going to surprise me. I don't know if that's just fans or what.
The Mavericks are plus 175. It's not like that's a huge underdog or like something crazy.
Right.
I think it's so that's we're solid favorites, but that's not. Well, I mean, in the last round we were like minus 1800 or like the other series have been absolutely ridiculous, and it seems like
That's
Vegas
true.
and all these places, their metrics just always have the Celtics off the chart. So if you think about it, like minus 220 to plus 175 isn't actually like that crazy of a difference. But I think a big part of it, too, is all year. I mean, at least the way I've been thinking, and probably a lot of Celtics fans, was I just assumed eventually, like, we would have to go up against Denver, and that would kind of be the test. I feel like all year has almost been a measuring stick to Denver. Like, think about the way we talked about both of those regular season matchups, where we're like, this is where we need to get to. This is the team. I mean, that's the one team that swept us this year.
Both.
Right, it's the only team, and it seemed like it was almost inevitable to, like, all right, if we get there, it's all going to come down to, like, can we beat this fucking team? And honestly, like, I don't feel that way about any other team. So I think even no matter what, whereas I like the Mavericks matchup maybe better than some of these other ones, like the Timberwolves, I think just matched up better. But I'd still, I think, be feeling confident against any team other than the Nuggets. It just always felt like that was going to be the final stage, the final hurdle. And, like, it honestly almost felt, like, surreal seeing them get knocked out. Like, it almost still hasn't sunk in yet. They're like, wait, that we're at the finals against the Mavericks? Like, again, no disrespect from the Mavericks. Luka is up there for the best player in the entire world. Jayson Kidd's done a hell of a job coaching. Kyrie's been great. They've got like a really good team, but it's just still, again, it's almost hard to imagine like looking at the run we've made. And now it's like, this is the last team. There's no Nuggets on the other side of it. There's no nothing, no nobody. Like, that's it. So again, I don't mean it to sound like we're up here like clowning on the Mavericks or not giving them their proper respect, but I think it's more that it's not the Nuggets than that it is the Mavericks, at least the way I look at it.
Well,
whereas I think those other matchups you could squabble, but the Nuggets were like the one that would have been
and I mean, just to put it out there, I mean, I think the Mavericks have been playing like great basketball. I mean, they like, again, this is when Kyrie and Luka are playing to this level, and then they have all the role players shooting at a level that they're playing at. I mean, if that's how it's going to play out, that's certainly going to give us problems. So I definitely don't want to sound like I'm like thinking that the Mavs like, wow, I can't believe we got so lucky, because there is this like sense of me that's so nervous. Like, I feel like if you just like you just like one of the things that happened, like, I think the Celtics are going to win in 5, but then it's like all this other stuff that I've seen, and things like that. It's kind of, there's this doubt does start to creep in no matter what. And I think that's obviously because the stakes are so high. Like I was saying, we go through the whole regular season, everything like that. And now it's like, well, this is it. There's nothing beyond this. It's now the answer we've been after for so long is ahead of us by I think June 23rd is the latest. Like, by then we'll know the answer to this question that's been on our minds for so long this year. So I think that's where kind of the nerves and the doubt does start to creep in a little bit, because it's just like, it's for scary. Sure. Like, it gets a little bit, but I feel confident too. I don't know how to describe it. Like, I'm not scared, but I'm confident, but I'm not like, I don't know. It's strange.
It's like, I'm not scared. I'm nervous about the situation and the, like you said, the finality of it. And again, it's at the end of the day, it's a series. You have to win 4 games. Like, it's a small sample size. Variance comes into play. I mean, we saw it last year. Obviously, very different year, very different team. But I mean, again, last year with the Heat series, it's like so quickly you're just in a hole, and it's like, oh shit, like. The same thing again, you lose one of those first 2 games, 1-1 with 2 days off going to Dallas. We're going to be like, oh my God, this next game, like suddenly you could go down 2-1 and just have 2 out of 3 bad games, which can happen no matter what against anyone. And then suddenly like your backs are up against the wall, and it gets real scary real fast. So hopefully we won't be backed into that corner. But
that's kind of like the point that I don't know if you saw the clip. I know you don't like to give them any like airtime, but I don't know if you saw the clip of JJ Redick going on Felger and Maz, and did you see the clip before? I mean, okay. Well, for anyone who
I don't
didn't
think I saw
see
the whole interview, but I saw a clip. I don't know if it's what you're referencing.
I saw the clip. I just saw a clip. I didn't see that. I'm not sure that much, but they essentially they were just basically trying to like get him to say that if the Celtics lose, it's because they're like pussies and they suck and that they're not really that tough of a team. Well, like the point he was making, and maybe this is one of those things that's freaking me out too, is it's like, the end of the day, like everyone's trying their hardest. Like it just becomes matchups and things like that, and things can happen. Like they're like, so if the Celtics lose, like was it like did they like choke pretty much? That's not exactly how they asked it, but he's like,
he asked, would that mean they got outworked? Was the
would that
word
mean they got outworked? Yeah, or like does that mean that the better team lost? And he's like, no, like the better team is always going to win, and like the better team, it doesn't necessarily mean like what your overall rating on like a video game is or something like that. Like sometimes like you're just a better team in that series, and it's kind of I love that. I loved how pissed they were getting about just like that he just wouldn't speak in this like talk radio like
right.
If this happens, then they are this. Like everything is just kind of it's like no one's not working hard right now. Like even I don't know. It is kind of crazy. But
if there was ever like a time or a season where that point is so perfectly on display, I feel like it's right now with what we just talked about in the West. Where look at it, that Minnesota team, how they played against Denver in what was obviously a great matchup and a team that like Minnesota clearly geared their team for getting past Denver. They played Denver and beat them and looked amazing. And then they played the Mavericks and it was like, we're watching a completely different team. And it's just all matchups. And again, if Denver had won that game 7, like they might have just smoked the Mavericks. Like there's no question. So with the 3 of them, it's not like there's some, mathematic principle. You can be like, well, they beat them, so they're better than them and this and that. It's like, at the end of the day, like we don't know if the Mavericks are better than the Nuggets because they never played each other. But it's just like such a dumb way to look at it. It's not like the Mavericks, or it's not like the Timberwolves. So the Timberwolves wanted it more than the Nuggets, but less than the Mavericks. Like, no, that's just like I can't even imagine boiling down like sports to that. I'm sure the Nuggets wanted it plenty badly.
And like, how would you transfer that? It's like, well, this team lost in 5, this team lost in 6. So the team that lost in 6, if we're ranking how much they wanted, they were working harder. They wanted it just a little bit more. That's what. But that's kind of what makes. And I guess just to spend a little bit more time, on kind of how the noise sort of can impact this back because it's so long. We're so long away. I think if there's just way too much time for these different fucking takes and things to come out. We've worked our way back to like do the Jays like each other. We've worked our ways back to all that. I thought Joe had a great quote, basically calling all of that bullshit. We tweeted that out on the @Chuddy's Corner. So if anyone wants to check that out, go check it out. But it is another thing too that I think is like strange is how many like. And I don't know how much stock to take in some of this, like the analysts when they pick the series. It almost seems like a split between the Celtics and the Mavs, which is kind of like, again, I don't think that the odds necessarily reflect that it would be that. Again, it's not a huge discrepancy, but I'm never really sure what to take. It's like when ESPN posted, it's like, okay, well, I think that, I think the Mavs are going to win. Also, Mavs are on ESPN bet at plus 175 if anyone wants to take them. It's almost like, I don't know. Is there a little bit of that in like has sports betting kind of made it like we have to make this series seem closer to maybe try to drive some bets on the Mavs or anything like that, or do you think that line is pretty?
I think that's pretty. Again, I really don't think that's like a huge discrepancy for the finals. I bet if you look back at like the actual odds going into the series, most years it's actually like how many have even been that close? I would say they probably. Are usually a much wider margin. So I don't know exactly, but I don't think picking like a plus 175 underdog is crazy. I think a lot of these people, especially in the mainstream sports media, are so married to takes that they've made like that. There are probably people who have been, Celtics skeptics, Tatum haters, whatever, who just like have to, and then there's like obviously all the Luka stands and the people who want Luka to win so that everyone can all summer say, well, he's the best player in the world now, like this, that, and the other. So, there's definitely, I kind of take everything with a grain of salt, but I do think overall, like it's a fairly even matchup. Again, I think how much you buy into the Mavericks' end of season success, which I think is obviously legitimate, and how much, Celtics skepticism there is, fair or not, from years past where, we've kind of talked about it with all of the takes that have gone on all playoffs all year and beyond. Like there's definitely a certain portion of people out there who, no matter what happens, until the day where the Celtics are literally lifting the championship and they're champions of the NBA, like people just aren't going to believe it's going to happen or whatever. And even when it does happen, I'm sure they'll find other things to rip apart about the Celtics, but I do think that's part of all the picks, whereas some people are just like, until I actually see them win, I just don't think they're gonna.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is get ready for that as soon if we do win, and let's say we win it in like 5, I bet you half these people that were picking the Mavs are gonna be like, well, it was the Mavs. They didn't play the Nuggets. They could have. So it's 100%. Kind of funny how it is. You
didn't play anyone.
Noise. Yeah, right. Like these teams are like, oh, I think the Mavs are gonna beat them in 6. If we beat the Mavs in 5, they're going to be like, well, the Mavs no one ever thought the Mavs were going to win. That's just crazy.
Right. Oh, yeah, so, of course.
This is, any Celtics fan out there, it's us enjoying this. Forget everyone else, because that's going to happen. That if the Celtics win, that it is going to be discredited. So don't even listen to it. Don't even care about it. we have to enjoy this for us. So hopefully when it all works out, it'll be a nice, beautiful. It'll be us against the world, continuing on. But
absolutely,
I'm excited though. I mean, there's a ton of different storylines that we can get into if you want to sort of dive in.
Let's talk about the actual matchup on the court a little bit first. I feel like we've
okay, all right,
in terms of what's going to happen.
What are your kind of thoughts? I mean, I hinted at some of them earlier, but go ahead.
So I think obviously the big thing is, everyone knows Luka and Kyrie, the, kind of two-headed monster of this Mavericks team. You've got Luka playing at a MVP level all season. And I mean, that's continued for the most part in these playoffs. He's been a little hampered by injuries, but came up big when his team needed it most. And that's going to be the big story on their end. It's they're such a their offense is very kind of heliocentric, obviously, around Luka, and then when it's not around Luka, it's kind of around Kyrie. They play off of each other a little bit, but in these playoffs, it's been a lot of their role players stepping up. They've trusted these guys. Other teams have basically tried to dare other guys to beat them, and we've seen, PJ Washington going crazy, turning into Ray Allen in those corners. Got to watch out for that. There's been a Dante Exum game or two. Jaden Hardy's been crazy. Derek Lively, the rookie, has been great at center for them. Him and Daniel Gafford, they basically only shoot lobs, but they don't miss. They each get about 5-6 alley-oop dunks a game. So all you hear about, again, is Luka and Kyrie, but those other guys are a large part of the reason. Derek Jones Jr., too, can't leave him out. Those guys have all been awesome in these playoffs. Jump
to the roof.
Yeah, so that, again, if you're just looking at the matchups, you're thinking it's all Luka, Kyrie, but those other guys are a big part of the reason they've gotten here. Their role players are playing really, really well.
I think that's how they can win the series. Those guys have to, if those guys are able to get comfortable and help the other two, then that's how it gets done. It all comes down to, so again, everyone's looking at that top matchup, but I do think if Luka averages 35 points in this series, that doesn't necessarily mean a Mavs win. If Luka averages 35 points in this series, and then one or two of those guys is up in double digits and out rebounding and shit like that, that's where I think the real challenge comes.
And again, I think even looking beyond the statistics, I think it's something we've talked about all year, and it's maybe the Celtics, arguably their biggest advantage in the entire NBA, is their ability to guard without putting two on the ball, and that's going to be such a key in this series. Can we defend Kyrie and Luka without double teaming them? We have the personnel to do it, as you kind of alluded to earlier. I mean, obviously, we've got the two All-NBA, all-defense guards in White and Drew, both the Jays. Al will get hunted when he's out there, but again, it's kind of what's our tolerance to live with it, and how bad will it get before we have to adjust? If we can manage to play defense, though, without overhelping, doubling, and all that stuff, you really got to like our chances. Because, again, as well as those role players for the Mavericks have played, it's not like suddenly they're going to start beating guys one-to-one. They've played really well, but a lot of it is because it's all being set up for them by those other two guys. If you go look at the highlights of what PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr. have done, credit to them, they've hit their open shots, but it's a lot of open shots. If we can defend without leaving those guys wide open, you got to really like our chances. And then, like you said, if it turns into Luka has 35, 15, and 12, but he's shooting 11 of 35, it's we're probably going to win that way. That's probably going to work out really well for the Celtics. So I think that's the biggest thing, is how much can we contain their top two guys, where, like you said, if they're putting up big stats, it's not the end of the world. But if no one else is getting involved, I just don't think they can beat us playing that way with two guys. I'd love to see, the Jays go out there and decide, we are going to win this series with our defense. We're going to lead on that end. And both Jays kind of showing almost the difference in the two teams in general and the two stars in Tatum and Luka, where as much as, Luka is the team goes as Luka goes, whereas the Celtics, will get our offense from whoever. Whatever you want to take away, we will have an answer for it somewhere else on the court. And, we don't think that you do. So if we can guard up Luka enough, I don't think these other guys can create offense without him doing so much of it for him. So that, to me, is probably the biggest key in the series, how we can manage to defend those two guys and what it takes. And I think at the end of the day, we can talk about who's going to be on who and this and that, and it'll probably be Jaylen on Luka and probably White on Kyrie to start. But this whole league is about switching, hunting, this, that, and the other, and that's what they do, and they do it really well. But you've got to like our chances with those guys on the floor, where it's if Derek White is the weakest guy or whatever, and that's who you're hunting. Like, that's pretty good for the Celtics. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's an all defense.
Right. So defense, it's not like we're going to have someone out there. I mean, unless, again, we could talk more about the deep benches, but, you know, you see someone like Hauser, Cornette go in there, they're immediately going to be targeted. And so to the point where, like, we'll see if they can even
I feel
play.
like this might be a little bit better for Hauser, though. Like, I feel like this team doesn't play necessarily as... You don't sound as confident.
Well, I don't know. I don't love him
getting on
to Luka or Kyrie.
He does all right.
Obviously.
Well, I mean, yeah, that would.
But that's what I'm saying. That's when we have to help. If it's, you know, we don't want Hauser on an island against one of those two guys, so then we do have to send help. Then they move the ball. That's where Luka's such an amazing passer. That's when he starts to find those guys in the corners. They are hitting open threes. They're getting momentum, stuff like that, which is what we really need to stamp out. Again, if it's just Luka working his ass off one-on-one against one of the Jays and he's shooting a step back and makes some of them, it's like, fine, I'll live with that.
Yeah.
It's the other
so
stuff
that was,
can't let them get going.
That was, that's good on, you know, how are we going to slow them down? Is it just a matter, like, are we just submitting that they can't slow us down, really? Like, I don't really know. I don't know a ton about, like some of those deeper bench guys and, like, where the Mavs are defensively. I'm sure that they're better, like, since the deadline and stuff like that. But I just feel like, is it just a matter of if we slow them down, then we can win? Or like, is there a chance that they're going to, like, give up? Because to me, I just don't see how they can, like, even if you just, again, there's going to be a ton of switching, but if you just look at, like, one of our two guards on Kyrie and then vice versa, one of their, you know, going against Kyrie and then one of the Jays going against Luka, just feel like that's just, like, open season for the Celtics. Yeah. So do they have, like a guy like that you kind of wouldn't necessarily think of that just can come off the bench and just shut people down? Like, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know if they have a guy like quite like that. Dante Exum, I think, will get a chance. He's been a good defender for them. I think in the starting lineup,
yeah, that's what I mean, like a little secret weapon.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. There's no like one guy who scares me. They've played really good defense as a team, and a lot of that, their stars, Luka and Kyrie, have gotten credit for stepping it up on that end. But still, at the end of the day, we're going to live with almost any of our guys going against them. And I think, like I said, on defense, how we have 5 good guys out there that can keep our defense out of rotation as an advantage. It's kind of the same thing on offense, where we have 4 guys plus an elite big who can create the offense. And it's like, we're almost happy to, you know, not to go back to our buzzword, but taking what the us has been the story of the Celtics a lot of the year. And I think that'll be the case again, where it's like, how do you want to try to guard us? What are they going to do? And I think, you know, if it's Derek White is on Irving, I think we'll have Tatum initiating offense and we'll have White setting a screen every single play, put Kyrie in that action nonstop and force them to either put 2 guys on Tatum or live with Kyrie on Tatum until that's not tenable. If they decide to try to hide Kyrie on Holiday, I think you'll see Holiday going into the post, posting him up and making those little lefty hook shots all day long. So again, it's just being smart about it. It's not forcing it. I think at this point, the Celtics have proven that they truly don't care who does what and how it comes from, as long as it's working and we're winning. And I'm confident that that'll continue to be the case, but just be purposeful, be intentional with what we're doing on offense, move the ball, get them in rotation. Again, the Mavericks have done a great job defensively since the trade deadline, but they haven't guarded the 3-point line particularly well. Again, this speaks to the matchups where last round it wasn't really hurting them, but they will leave a lot of corner threes for the taking. I don't know if they'll adjust against the Celtics, and that was more game plan specific, but if they kind of defend the same way and move their defense kind of up a little higher, especially on that back line to take away the elbows and some of the driving angles, then there are going to be opportunities there for our guys to swing passes, to get the ball moving, and to get open shots in the corner. And obviously that's how, you know, the Celtics are at their best, when we're getting 40 plus threes a game up and getting those good looks off good ball movement, and then the drive and kick game goes. And again, they've got good personnel, 2 athletic centers in Lively and Gafford, but those are 2 like very, very traditional drop coverage centers who don't want to go far away from the basket. So again, that'll be one of the biggest things to watch for with Porzingis. If he can drag their centers out of the lane, and, you know, not to go full Joe Maz, but it will be so much about the spacing. And if we can get them spaced in a way that they don't want, like, you know, for all the talk about Rudy Gobert, they can put a center on Rudy Gobert and not worry about him going, you know, all he can do on the perimeter is screen. Like, they're not worried about him picking and popping, obviously, like Porzingis 30 feet away from the basket, where Gafford and Lively, it's not like they can just sit back and let him shoot those, hopefully, if he's playing. And I mean, even the same for Horford, who's obviously not the same shooter, but the same thing. I don't think they can just give Horford wide open 3-point shots the entire game. So we should be able to pressure their defense really well and then find those pressure points. And like you said, it's going to be attacking Kyrie, attacking Luka, and it doesn't really matter who it is. Wherever they try to hide those guys, we have to make sure we keep finding them over and over again. So again, it's kind of ideal that their two biggest defensive liabilities are their two best players. So it's not like a series where it could be like, well, maybe this isn't like a good series for Kyrie. Like they can't take those guys off the floor, really, obviously. So
yeah,
no matter what, there'll be someone for the Celtics to pick on. And even if those guys have gotten better, they're still, far from elite defenders or anything like that. I do wonder if the Mavericks will try to have Luka guard Horford if Al is starting for us, just because, Luka, he is huge. And that might be a better matchup for him to not put someone a little quicker on him, not really make him work to guard like on the perimeter, and also to try to almost get us out of what we want to do. And basically, they might just dare the Celtics to be like, you want to post up, like run your offense as like Al post ups on Luka, like we'll live with that because they know that's not really what we want to do. And then if we want to hide Al in the corner, that could be an opportunity for Luka to get some rest on that end. So they could try that. I could see that again. I don't know.
What would be the way to like break that? Because that I was feeling very confident about all the matchup stuff until you just mentioned that. Because my whole thing is tire Luka out. What would be like? Would that just be?
Oh, I mean, no. Then you
setting a lot of screens to start and stuff like that, and
then you just make Al the screener, and make them work. No matter what, he's got to be working. That's the thing. Whoever he's guarding, and again, that's the benefit of the Celtics, where it's not like Al Horford is some useless putz who can only sit in the corner. Like he's still a hell of a player. You and I. Again, there's degrees of hiding, and the Celtics are lucky that we have such a good roster where 90% of the time there's no one we have to hide on either end, where you truly are happy to take it from wherever. So yeah, if Al just has to be more of a screener, that's fine. Is Luka going to play drop like he's a center? And if he does, then like great. Anyone who basically is handling the ball can drive right at him, and we'll live with that. So just keeping him involved and not letting those guys off the hook, basically, where they're going to try to hide them, and it's easy for the Celtics to kind of go away with it. And I think that's going to be a big thing that, our stars on the court, it's on them, and it's going to be on Joe to make sure that no matter what, we're not letting them really take possessions off in the defensive end, and that we're going at their best players. But at the same time, as good as their defense has been, it's not like Derek Jones Jr., PJ Washington, those guys are fine. Neither of them is a great defender who you're like, they have a Tatum stopper. Even they have a Brown stopper. So
that's what I was sort of curious about.
They're good defenders. And when Derek Jones Jr., someone I did see a good point when he was on the Heat, they ran a ton of 3-2 zone with Jones at the top, kind of lurking around the perimeter, super long arms, very athletic, as you mentioned, quick jumper. And that did give us some problems. So I wonder if Kid and the Mavericks might go to something like that if things aren't working. And then they can keep one of their centers kind of under the rim. So that could be something they try. But again, the Celtics all year have had answers for just about every defense. And I'm confident that just personnel-wise, there's nothing they can do. Like, they don't have that crazy guy that should really give us a lot of trouble on that end.
All right. Thank goodness. Yeah. I mean, again, I feel like then we talk about this, where we remove all the extra noise and we talk about that. And I just feel like it's like we should win this series in 5, like just talking about the matchups, but then it's like, Luka, I don't know, Luka and Kyrie are probably good enough to each steal a game themselves, but I feel better after that X's and O's conversation because you just kind of take all the noise out of it. You're just talking about what's going to happen on the court, and it does sort of feel like, we have almost advantage in almost every single category, like lining up coach, player, matchups, everything. So.
Well, I think the big thing is, and probably what's making this series even on paper is, a lot of times it comes down to which team has the best player. And the Mavericks probably do have the best overall player in the series. And how often in the finals does the best player not win? I mean, I think you can make a case, but Luka's pretty right up there as, I think.
I think him and Tatum are both.
Yeah, I think Luka's ranked a little higher if you're going into it, all that and the other. But either way, he's
even
capable
on both ends of the floor.
Well, my point, you could sit here and argue all day about who's actually better, but my point is, it's easy. It's not a stretch to say Luka could easily be the best player in his year. Like, that wouldn't be a shock if you go out there and Luka, all this stuff we've talked about, coverage, and we'll live with that, and we will. He could still just get hot and score 45 points, hitting ridiculous step back three, one after another. Like, he is that good. So there's that element of it, because look back through finals history, and it's like, how many times has the team with the best player not won? It's not a lot. So, I mean, that would kind of be the argument that the Celtics are such a better team overall and so well balanced, which I think is fair. And it's the reason we are still solid favorites in this series. But I think that would be the main thing people would push back is like, well, the Mavs have the guy. The Celtics don't, which we'll see if it matters. But it's something that obviously can matter. And like you said, he could go on a heater by himself. And sometimes there's just nothing you can do about that. Kyrie, less so, I think. I think a lot has been like overblown about his resurgence. I think he's played well, but it's still, he's not like, he hasn't been amazing, and he hasn't had too many of those. He's had a half here and there, a game here and there, but he's like taken such a clearly lesser role. Like his numbers aren't really blowing anyone away. I think there was multiple games in the OKC series where he was in single digit points. Like he can't do that against the Celtics, like for them to have a chance at all. And the Celtics, that's a matchup. I hate to add any fuel to the fire for Kyrie for him to light his sage with, but they're like, we can match up so well with him, and we've done such a good job on him ever since going back to when he was on the Nets. Like, I feel like it's been a long, long time since he really went off against us, and I think that's like a narrative that people talk about as if like, oh, big revenge series, like he always gets fired up for this, that, and the other. It's like
he's 0 for 10 in his last 10 games.
And we've seen him kind of like break under the pressure, and I mean, by the end of that Nets sweep, he looked like he didn't want to be out there anymore. He was just like wanted no part of the way we were playing him defensively. So I think it has to be that kind of energy from the jump on Kyrie. And again, like, not that he's obviously a star, but Luka's on a tier of his own, even on that team. Like, whatever they want to say about having like a 1-2 punch, it's Luka, big gap, then it's Kyrie.
Yeah, I'm not even sure it's like a Batman and Robin situation.
Right,
that
he's
might
almost
be more like
a star role player on that
Batman team and like Alfred maybe or something.
Well, that's Reddick's. Yeah. That's Reddick's thing. But he.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said everyone talks Batman and Robins, but it's about the Alfred, and I think he said Derek Alfred's like the best. Derek White. I think it was him going on.
Good Alfred. He is great.
He's the best Alfred in the league. I think was what Reddick was saying.
Solid Alfred. Well, shout out JJ Reddick. There you go.
Yeah.
I'd say as far as basketball minds go, it's probably JJ Reddick, and then I'm maybe the Alfred to JJ Reddick's Batman as far as basketball minds go. Yeah, so that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So a lot of good, a lot of interesting stuff matchup wise.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like you said, at least on paper, the matchups all kind of favor the Celtics is the thing you really like to see. So it's just going to be who can kind of impose their styles on the game, who can play the way they want to play. And, I like it for the Celtics, whereas we looked at some of those other teams and how we would match up, and it's not a commentary on who's better. Like, we just saw the Mavs dominate the Timberwolves, so that no one's out here going to be like, yep, the Timberwolves are better. But just watching the matchups, like, the Timberwolves have great wing defenders for us. McDaniels is one of the best at guarding the Jays, and did a really good job on them, too. They've obviously got giants down low and Gobert and Cat, and we saw those regular season games were battles, and they were able to bother us defensively and take us out of playing the way we want to play. And I'm just not sure the Mavericks can do that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. It's going to be good. Good breakdown. Hope everyone feels a little bit more confident now. Just about, the matches, like you said. But again, anything can happen. Anything can happen. We're not disrespecting the Mavs. This is not a Mavs disrespect podcast. All right. So I mentioned before, this is a storyline rich NBA Finals. This year. So, I mean, you can always find a million different things to talk about for the NBA Finals, but I think a couple of them we talked about, we kind of dipped a little bit into the Luka versus Tatum debate. I think to an extent, too, it's, Jaylen Brown also kind of proving outside of Boston that he might at least be, that he's worthy of being kind of in that conversation. Maybe not, I don't know, maybe not as quite
he's
that
not worthy
level,
of being
but getting
in
into
that conversation.
But I think I don't know. I think he has like a chip to try to prove that he has. I'm not saying he ever will, but I do think that, the Luka versus JT debate almost, I feel like, might fuel Jaylen a little bit. This is the NBA. This is the leading scorer from the 2016, 2017, 2018 draft also in these NBA Finals. That's Jaylen, Tatum, and Luka.
And all of them are 3
picks.
Yeah.
Third overall picks, which is kind of funny. That's like, that would be, I would just love to eventually go back and just do a documentary talking about the people with the first 2 picks there.
The Lakers and the Sixers, both years for the Celtics.
Both years for the Celtics, yeah.
And then it was Bagley and Ayton and Bagley in the Luka year, which is absolutely hilarious that the Kings picked Marvin Bagley.
That is funny. Yeah, so I think that this one, again, this is kind of, do you think that for Tatum, does like a win here sort of put him above like Luka? Does it change? Is it not? It's not like a ring type of thing because like would a Luka win? I mean, I know if there's a Luka win, it's going to be a disaster on Twitter for like the Luka stands and stuff like that. But
it's also, who do you ask? I mean, is that something they'll be talking about on like First Take and Uninterrupted or whatever that show is?
Well, that'll definitely be. It'll be
yes. But in reality, like, no, I'm not going to change dramatically, I mean, obviously barring if something crazy happens, but I think it's like at this point, it's just fine to acknowledge that Luka's probably the best player in the series. He's probably the second or third best player in the world. He's sniffing that top spot, no doubt. I think Tatum is squarely in the top 5 or 6 players in the world. You can squabble a little bit with that order. I think Jaylen is in the top 20, top 15. I think there's probably some guys ahead of him.
Top 15 at least now. I think he's kind of cracked that.
Maybe he's on, again, but I just think all of these debates kind of like what we did with the teams, where it's you can't talk about, there's so much matchup dependent and what you need, and Jaylen fits really well on this Celtics team where he's not the main guy, but how do you compare him to, I don't know, like someone specific, but another guy who maybe isn't as successful on their team, but has a much bigger role that they have to fill, and it's like, you can't kind of take the context out of it, and the fact that as awesome as Jaylen is, it's certainly helpful to him that every time out on the court, the other team's main focus is Jayson Tatum. And like, he's always going to be the secondary guy they're trying to take away. So it's, even in the games like we talked about, even last series where Brown won Eastern Conference Finals MVP, at the end of the day, we all know that like Tatum is the guy getting the bulk of the attention, and he has the bulk of the responsibility. And at the end of the day, like, even when other guys play well, it's hard not to credit Tatum for everything that he's doing and everything he's making the defense do that's even allowing the opportunity for those other guys. So, again, there's definitely some Jaylen disrespect. And, hey, if that does fuel him, then awesome. Like, absolutely should. I think, if anything, it's the people who are saying that the Mavs have, like, the best duo, where that would be the one that I think Jaylen he could take more personally and say, like, whoa, like, I, at this point, am a clear like level ahead of Irving. I think that's more of a debate that's reasonable. Like, I think the other stuff is kind of, I don't know, a little further.
I was just gonna say, I feel like that first one's a little bit like you said, first take-ish or whatever. But I thought it was worth mentioning. The next one, this is a much more heartwarming one. Horford looking to get a ring in his 17th year. 181 playoff games without a ring. He's third all time. He's gonna pass John Stockton this series. John Stockton has 182. Karl Malone has 193. So he won't. But so hopefully he just gets his name off of this list, because not only is it just he deserves it, but also that's just a brutal 2 names to have yourself being compared to. Again, on the floor is one thing, but just like, I hope that he's not on the Karl Malone, John Stockton trajectory for sure. So he'll turn 38 too on June 3rd. So like before the playoffs, before the series even starts, he'll be 38 too. So Al, I mean, the guy deserves it. He needs it. We came close 2 years ago. The Al storyline, this might be my like favorite one, because I just think it's like, that shit's gonna hit so fucking hard if we can get this done and get Al his ring.
And Al just deserves it so much.
There's gonna be an unreal picture like of Al with the trophy that's gonna make us all cry.
Yeah, definitely. Almost tearing up just thinking about it. And yes, he deserves it so much. Been such a great player for so long. The fact that he's still playing at such a high level. I mean, I was going back the other day and remembering when when Stevens took over and his first move was flipping Kemba to get Horford back. There were people whose response were like, this is just a salary dump. And they were like, I think they're just going to buy out Horford. Like, he's done. Yeah. And now he's just still, years later, still an awesome key player, like every team. And we've,
and stepping up huge with the Porzingis injury. Like,
we're basically just taking it for granted, the fact that, we had an elite starter go down with an injury, basically missed the entire playoffs, and we just have Al ready to step in and, like, even at his worst, has still been like very solid to just be able to step in and play these huge minutes at center in the NBA playoffs. And like, what an absolute luxury. And it's also cool that if he did win, it's not like he's just some like old ring chaser who's along for the ride. Like, he is playing a very, very huge part of the success the Celtics have had. So yes, couldn't be more deserving. And I mean, I'd be happy for the Jays just to shut people up. But it'd be hard to think of anyone other than Al you'd be happier for.
Yeah, I was trying to kind of think of some other like old guys to get that ring, that sort of first ring, and like I don't know, there's like John Elway, like Ray Bork, of course, too. Yeah, do you think that Atlanta will have a parade for Al if he wins the ring with the Celtics?
I think Philly and OKC should as well.
Just an Al Horford day throughout the country. Really well deserved. Yeah, absolutely. So exciting, obviously, for Al. I'm just kind of going down my list here. Jason Kidd could be the 13th person to win a title as a player and a coach, and he'd be the 6th person to win as a player and head coach for the same team. Obviously, he was on that 2011 Mavericks run, which also there was some stat I saw before that kind of made me freaked out about the the Mavericks 2011 run. There was some comparison it made to this one, and I got a little bit nervous. But Jason Kidd, I mean, I think that he kind of sort of got clowned on a little bit for his role as like a head coach early on in his head coaching career. You watch more Mavericks, you can sort of see the stuff more. As he sort of turning around, or is it just their talent? I mean,
no,
it seems like that he's done better.
I was going to say he's one who's, I think it's what he's done that has changed things around. And I think it's fair. If you recall, who hired Kidd first? Was it the Nets or the Bucks? Nets they took him, he was almost a player. And I feel like he was a coach a week later. Like he was one of those guys who had really no experience at all. Like he was never an assistant or anything. He almost came right off the bench as a player to start coaching. And in his first few stints, he did get clowned on for sure. He had that thing where he dropped the water on the court, which everyone was talking about, and he was just
which I don't know why you get clowned on that. That's a hilarious move.
But he just did some dumb things coaching wise, personnel wise.
Nets, Bucks. Then he was an assistant on the Lakers. Now he's with the Mavs.
Gotcha. Right, and I think he was probably humbled by a few of those first experiences. I think going to being assistant on the Lakers probably helped a lot. And it's again, this guy was one of the best point guards to ever play the game. And he was the epitome of a coach on the floor by the end of his career. So it's not like he's some bozo who doesn't understand the game. I don't think that was ever in question. I think he just had to learn the job. And I think he really has made great strides. He's come a lot better. One thing he's always been good at is managing stars. Even when he's in Milwaukee, Giannis always loved him, just had a great relationship with him. And I think a lot of the stuff we talk about with Joe, where his coaching goes so far beyond X's and O's, but it's the buy-in he gets, the motivation, figuring all that stuff out. I mean, everyone's giving all this credit for Kyrie Irving, and the Mavericks were getting completely clowned on as a franchise when they made that trade and brought him in. They were like, Jesus, this is a desperation move, but you have to give Kidd some credit. He's made him fall in line, and he's gotten this version of Kyrie Irving for the Mavericks has been a pretty incredible upset compared to where things were on the whole Kyrie front not long ago. So credit him for all of that stuff. And again, I think he's done a really good job with the team he has to work with. Part of it is definitely the personnel, but down the stretch, he's got them playing some great basketball. So I don't think this is the massive coaching matchup that some people maybe think it is based on past reputations. But I think, it's two young coaches, obviously coaching in the finals for the first time with a lot to prove. But I think two guys who both have rightfully kind of shored up their reputations this year and who have become really, really good young coaches in the league as a credit to them. So I think we still have the advantage. I think I like Mazzulla more, but I don't think Kidd's at a slouch over there.
Yeah. You mentioned the age too. Mazzulla's the youngest coach in the NBA Finals since Bill Russell was a player coach. I think that's just a stat worth mentioning. We've talked at length about Joe, so we don't need to go too deep into that. But it is a cool matchup where it is two kind of younger, former player, obviously Kidd with a much more successful career playing wise than Joe. But it is kind of it'll be interesting sort of see these two go up against each other. And I got no issue with Jayson Kidd either. I like Jayson Kidd. Okay, so this would be a good opportunity to did I just call him something different?
No, but you have no issue with Jayson Kidd, who was one of the largest villains of the Celtics in the early 2000s they were just wife beater at him during the game after he domestically abused his wife.
I guess I kind of all right, fair. All right. Well, I mean, okay. Now, if you're gonna say call the wife, okay, I disavow. But I don't know. I guess I kind of my memories of him. I guess are more. I mean, the more fresh memories are. I thought that that Mavericks title run was obviously cool and stuff like that. But the spilling the water thing still cracks me up. But yes, obviously, from a wife beater perspective, I'm not a huge fan of Jayson Kidd.
Well, I just hated those Nets teams too. They even just him on the court, I just couldn't fucking stand them. They beat us. Yeah. Obviously, they beat us, kept us from the finals in 02 or 03, whatever it was. So, frig them, frig him. He's an enemy at least for these next couple weeks.
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna throw a Jayson Kidd jersey on or something, but
better not.
All right, this is a good chance to kind of bring up Porzingis. Porzingis obviously going against the Mavs. Just before we get into that storyline part of it, I think. I saw a video yesterday, Porzingis doing some jump shots, shooting some threes, moving around, not much of a noticeable limp or anything like that. He had the tweet, which you and I sort of disagreed. I thought his tweet was a little bit cryptic because it wasn't like a fully him confirming. I don't know. But Porzingis it looks like he's going to be back everyone keeps saying he'll be back for the finals, but no one has said he'll be back on game one, which I think is where it's sort of like, if he was going to be back game one, why would we not say that unless it's like a gamesmanship thing where it's like, well, let's make the Mavs not.
They don't have.
We don't have to tell them anything, yeah.
Right. So I think that's part of it. Is that either way, what they know, I'm sure they're like, we're going to make it official until we have to release an injury report. Why would we? I think the fact that he's tweeting anything and was in the tweet was like, feeling good, see you in the finals. Like, I don't think that's that cryptic. I mean, I don't know.
Why do you?
Again, he's probably
does he
not
usually
allowed
tweet
to
in
say,
Latvian?
I would imagine. I mean, it's his first language, but I don't know. But again, maybe that's part of it. He wanted to tweet it in Latin, so there would be no mix-up of like what he said. He wanted to say it exactly in a way that he was comfortable. But I mean, yeah, all the signs are positive. That was his
first Latvian tweet in months.
All right, so
where he tweeted in Latvian.
Good. I think that's a good sign. I think that's a good sign. But yeah, I mean, again, I think it's been a full 5.5, 6 weeks at this point, and you never know. And it's more for me, like, I think he's definitely going to be playing. I'm just worried, like, what version of him are we going to get? But again, even if it's limited minutes, that would be a great sign. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to have him out there. Again, he's just a cheat code for if they do try to play that zone I mentioned to earlier. It'll be a huge to have him in there. Again, talked about Luka hiding on Al. Well, he can't hide on Porzingis, certainly. So I think, even without him, even without Porzingis at all, I'd still like our chances. But having him, obviously, just makes everything easier on both ends.
Do you think that Vegas spread is sort of based on the idea that he's going to be playing? Like, or do you think
I think it's based on the idea that he'll be playing, but not at full strength. I think it's kind of a cautious, which I think is where everyone's at. And even if he is fully healthy, going 6 weeks without playing an NBA game and then stepping into a finals, like just having his body, like just fatigue wise and all that other stuff, like getting ramped back up, there's no chance for him to do that, which again is why I would have loved to see him get just a little bit of run in the Pacers series. So I obviously didn't go long enough for that to happen. But like at that point, it's almost more worried about that than the health is like the actual like rust and stuff.
Do you think, can you just give like a little bit of like a refresher? Because I don't really, like, what was the Mavs and Luka, like, or I mean, Mavs and Porzingis, like, kind of beef? Was it like, did he just truly does he like not like Luka? Did he just not like his role there? Like, what, like, is it as like heated of a beef as people are kind of playing it up, or?
I think there was part of it was, I think when Porzingis got there, he was still fresh off being like the huge star in the Knicks. I think he kind of resented the fact that it was Luka's team and he was supposed to be the second guy, which like he should have been. I think that was part of it. I think he's spoken about it, actually. I think he did the pod. I think it was with Reddick, and he talked about it, and he said he blamed his own maturity is that he's still like deep in his head thought like, I'm the better guy. Like this shouldn't be like he's first, I'm second, and Porzingis is obviously older, and so I think it was partially just pride, ego, and not wanting to take like a lesser role at that point in his career.
So it sounds like he's not gonna have like a edge if he's like saying I was the one that was wrong.
Well, no, he was saying they were both immature, but he did take some. He wasn't saying like it was just their fault, like fuck them. He was saying like everyone could have done stuff better and this and that, but it just never really fit. Which is weird looking back now when you're like watch both of them. You're like, how could this not fit?
How could that not have worked?
But Luka's just become a different player. Porzingis has become a different player, and I think at the time Kidd wasn't the coach. It was still Carlisle, right? No, it wasn't. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. My memory's not working quite like that right now. But I think they were probably. I think there's probably a lot of regrets all around, and I think one of them is not probably utilizing them better, playing more pick and roll, having Porzingis post up more. We've seen a resurgence in his career since he went to Washington in the way that he's been used, and now obviously with the Celtics, where it's like this was obviously always there, but I think part of it was coaches kind of figuring it out, and part of it was him kind of accepting and embracing it too. Whereas we see the Porzingis now, and it's like this guy clearly doesn't seem like he has a big ego, cares about stats, about being a star. Like he's more than happy, and obviously it's later in his career, but now he's more than happy to just kind of fit in, play his role, and be a part of this team. And in Dallas, again, especially when he got there, I think he more had like a competitive mindset of like, no, I'm the best player on this team. We should be running more stuff through me. But I think it's a combination of all those things. I think there's definitely some bad blood, and I think it's probably, again, more with like Mavs fans in general than anything.
Okay, I like that.
Between them. So I think the Mavs fans definitely
that's good.
Porzingis. But I don't think like there's a real personal dislike through any of their characters directly.
All right, well, if the fans are getting on him, I think that'll give us enough juice for that then. That'll be good.
No doubt.
All right. And then, I mean, I have a couple other, obviously the elephant in the room we're going to get to, I think, for the last one. I have a couple other kind of sort of funny ones. Someone had pointed out, PFT commenter on part of my take mentioned that, honestly, this joke flew over my head at first, the JFK Revenge series.
I was going to bring
Boston
that one up.
Versus, okay, so that's a storyline. I love going with that storyline.
Sam Sheehan, Celtics Twitter legend Sam Sheehan has been pushing that one hard. I think he changed his...
okay, so maybe I heard it first
Twitter
on part of my take, but...
The Avenged JFK Celtics is what he's calling them. So
that's awesome. That's hilarious. Yeah.
Shout out to Sam Sheehan. I forget his Twitter name.
Yeah.
But he's a great follow. I think he's at NBA Baby Secret now because he's had multiple accounts kicked off. You can hear him on the Paul podcast too. He's a good listen and a good follow.
Knows ball too.
He's been playing up that angle big time.
All right, I love it because I want to play this angle up a lot too. So that's awesome.
It's a good one.
Yeah, got to get revenge for JFK. Yeah, that was it's time. It's long overdue. We've been waiting 51 years for this opportunity. So we finally have our chance to get some revenge on Dallas. Mm-hmm. That was a good one. I didn't realize that was good. That was going around like that. Also, Leon Poe. We need Leon Poe courtside for the Celtics games.
Love it.
Absolutely love the way that he's just like named himself as like the president of like Celtics fans or whatever. Like I'm fine with that kind of like coup takeover. I have no issues with that. At
this rate, I'm going to be telling my kids Leon Poe was the starter, not Perkins. And like, I'm like, the best big man on the Celtics. He's like everything I wish Perkins was, but it's like, well, like we needed an 08 Celtics center to fill this void apparently in the media. We thought it was going to be Perk, and Perk's gone to the dark side, and now Poe's just
is Leon Poe even like, is he even considered like in the media? I've just seen him tweeting like, I
don't think so.
I'll be an open invite on the pod.
Yeah.
If Leon Poe is, he could take my job on the pod if he wanted to. He's been absolutely electric.
We should reach out.
Just love to see that. Love to see him kind of just like out of nowhere. He just was just like, it's like these all caps tweets, awesome. And he's just absolutely eviscerating people. So shout out to Leon Poe. We need that. I want him at the Celtics games. I want him on the parquet. I want really anyone from that 08 team aside from Perkins on the parquet, but Leon Poe, have to mention Leon. And then, all right, so the last one that I have, if you have other storylines too, we can mention some of those, but obviously Kyrie Irving. This is like, some have called this like the Armageddon matchup here, because it's like this could be like, there's no good way to not achieve your goal. This would maybe be the worst way to do it. So Kyrie's coming back to Boston. I personally, and I'll just put this out there, if you're not watching YouTube, if you are watching YouTube, if you're not, I am wearing my Kyrie is a douche t-shirt. The shirt might lead you to think that I'm all in on the like, let's attack shit on Kyrie thing. I think that he shouldn't be welcomed back, like anything like that. I don't think the fuck Kyrie chants are necessary, like perhaps. I do like the idea of booing him when he has the ball, maybe giving him some chirps if you're sitting close to the court side. I don't think it needs to be as like extreme and as grand as it has been. I was honestly ready to move on. I've been tweeting out the Bugs Bunny, like, sorry, Lord, but gotta return back to the old meme, because like I was kind of ready to move on from the whole thing too. Since the lucky stomp, he's 0-10 against us. There's all these different things about it. But my case for still giving him more than we would give someone else comes a lot with just the idea that I thought that he played like really poorly against us when we were just like he was so in his own head in some of those matchups, like when he was like doing like the middle fingers behind his head, like the like just like saying like wow, like some of the videos, like I don't know what he's saying, but he's like wow, like wow, like all that shit, like that affected his game. So I think to a certain extent, I understand people that are sort of want to move on from it and are kind of over it. I understand that. I was pretty much there, but this is now the NBA Finals. We need every edge that you can get. So for me personally, I'm firing back up some of the I don't like you, Kyrie. Like in my head, I might be saying fuck Kyrie. I don't know if I'm going to be chanting it. I'm not going to be at the game anyway, but I pulled out the Kyrie the douche
chanting
t-shirt.
It in your living room?
I mean, I'll be yelling it, maybe not chanting, but fuck Kyrie. Like that'll definitely. I mean, you can't put those emotions away entirely. You just can't put that genie back in the box entirely. But I do think overall, I was ready to move on. But since he's here and since he's the one that's in the way, To borrow a quote from him is what he said about us when asked about it. And to his credit too, he had a chance to kind of shit on us there, and he kind of just said, "Look, that's in the past. They're in the way." But I think it impacts his game if we can get someone to at least throw him off his game a little bit. I don't think it needs to be the full-on parade. We don't need to throw a water bottle at him, that's for sure. Anything like that. But, so I don't know. I think that Kyrie, it felt a little stale. It felt a little dormant. This is definitely going to bring it back up. Huge finals matchup for T-shirt vendors. Obviously, I'm wearing the shirt now. But if you're a T-shirt vendor outside of the Garden, you're going to cash in on this matchup. But what do you think just about the storyline about Kyrie? I know we both were kind of beyond it, over it a little bit, but do you feel is that any of that emotion bubbling back up for you, or is this just another series?
Well, it's definitely not just another series, but again, I think it's as much the stakes of it as it is that that personal thing. So I mean, obviously there's always going to be some animosity there, and rightfully so, for how his Boston tenure and especially exit went down, and then how he kind of talked about it afterwards. I think we were all kind of ready to move on from it, and it was also largely because we had just kind of surpassed that level of disdain, where it's almost like he wasn't a worthy rival anymore. He had largely become irrelevant. Like you said, we had just been destroying him every time we played him. It was a sad story. He's bouncing around, not on good teams. He's clearly not as good as he once was, a good player, but the Jays are just way better players than him. The Celtics have been a way better team. He hasn't been relevant. So it's this is the first time I feel we played him where there was actually something. Even when Dallas was good this year, it was well, it's just a random regular season game against a team in the West. There's not much really there.
And there's no way we're going to play
he's not their player. Right. But it's also it's Luka's team too. So it's not even he's, a main guy. He's a main guy, but he's not the main guy. So I think there's all these reasons that it's just become a lesser thing. So in general, I'm over it. I don't have this huge hatred grudge of always rooting against him. But also, it's the finals. Anything that gives us an edge. I mean, we should be chanting fuck every player. We should fuck Luka, fuck Jayson, bring back the wife beater chants for
That
Kid.
would be awesome.
Chant, whatever to anyone. I want that level of disdain for every player on the opposing team. It's the NBA Finals. There's been a lot of ado about, is the crowd good? Is the crowd bad? Is the audio on ESPN good? Is it bad? Well, one benefit is I don't think we have to worry about the crowd being bad against Kyrie. So all of that will just generally help the crowd. I mean, all these games are late, 8:30 starts. So like you said, it's always just one more thing to fuel the crowd. It can't possibly hurt. And I do agree with you. In a lot of ways, it has affected him. I haven't seen him as one of those guys who kind of embraces the villain and rises to it. We've seen some guys who it clearly does fuel them. I'm with you. It seemed like he was
Luka, because I feel like he is that guy.
And in that Nets series, like I said, I think that was part of it. By the end, he was just kind of didn't want to even be a part of it. It was too much for him. So if that's working, by all means, keep doing it. I don't really care. But yeah, in terms of personal grudge, animosity, whatever, it's definitely, toned way down. And again, just kind of, it's we've won the breakup. We've moved on. Everything's good for the Celtics. It's we don't need you. It's almost that we don't even think about you anymore. You're barely relevant, and we've all ascended to the best team.
Yeah.
So again, once the series
that's where
starts,
I was at, but once he's back,
right, and now that he is in the finals, and again, just what we'll have to go through and listen to, if God forbid they do win, and if he wins Finals MVP, it's I'm just gonna have to probably go into the Oscar retreat for the summer, or something. I'm not gonna be able.
Or I guess that too. I guess it is.
One or the other.
Yeah, we'll beep that out.
Yeah, but then the one other thing I will say is all the it is getting a little annoying hearing all the people now doing the going back maybe we were all wrong and about Kyrie.
Oh yeah,
it's he clearly has just changed and matured and is not being a fucking jackass distraction every 2 seconds. It's not everyone else just missed stuff before. It's he still did all that shit and was a fucking distraction to every team he was on and couldn't get out of his own way. And every time he went to a microphone, basically said something absolutely moronic. So it's people now are I feel are washing over that and being well, maybe we were all too hard on him, and he's now proven that he was a good guy.
We were too,
exactly. He's just not a different person. He still did all that shit. Now he seems like it's in the past. And I still, there's 5 more days before the game starts. There's plenty of time for him to say something stupid. So again, we're talking about
he's got a lot of time to sit at home and watch random documentaries.
Exactly. So again, I think that's still all buried down there, and maybe the Celtics animus can bring it back out of him and get him back to his old ways of being a shithead, and that would be great. So not ruling it out.
Can never rule it out. But I think that I do to your point too, where he's not a riser when people are chirping. I feel Luka is that. Yeah. So I would not recommend going at, like, because that Wolves game, whoever that guy that he was yelling at underneath the basket, like, that guy really fucked the city over there for his team. Like, that was
not great.
That was some targeting behavior there. So that was So Luka, just let Luka play basketball. We can boo him in the intro and stuff like that. But
for sure,
yeah.
No, I'm with you on that. I think that's a huge point of emphasis. And again, where it's just like, it seems like it's almost beneath us to.
Can you hear my dog barking right now?
I thought that was you, but.
yeah. That's good. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. He's pumped for the playoffs too. He's got the dog in him too. So
exactly.
That's good. I like that. Great answer.
Yeah. But no, it's like he's not the marquee guy, and it's like, we'll give him his focus as a secondary, tertiary star and whatever, but it's like the Kyrie versus Boston thing shouldn't overshadow all like the real storylines of the matchups.
He's psyched for the finals, folks.
He agrees.
He's psyched. Yeah.
He's saying, what do you mean you don't hate Kyrie anymore?
Yeah. What do you feel about Kyrie? Yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. Yeah, so I don't know. That's kind of all I got for a great preview. This is a great preview. I don't know if there's anything else. Any final thoughts or anything that you want to add?
The one other thing that I think it's important to touch on that I do think is a big deal is I'll be very interested to see what the rotations are for Missoula. As we talked a little bit about, I think this could be a tough matchup for Pritchard, Hauser, Cornette, the kind of guys who, I mean, obviously with Pritchard, they can abuse him with size, Hauser, athleticism, whatever, and Cornette, just the overall everything about him. But those are guys where, I don't mean it. There are good matchups for him and there are bad ones. I think as for kind of all bench players.
But yes, we don't want a situation where,
we don't want Luka on an island with, I think, any of those guys. It's going to be way too easy pickings. We can't afford to do that. I think we saw a little O'Shea Brissett last series. I think this is another series where I think Brissett could be a big factor. He could kind of take those Hauser minutes, again, especially it's the NBA Finals. Like, there has to be a short leash. We can't let water find its level. If Hauser comes in and he's bricking his first two shots, I think you got to have a quick hook right there. And again, that's not a guy we want matched up on Luka. So those minutes can go to Brissett. Brissett's someone who's a great defender. We can live with him switching on to just about anyone. We know he's going to bring the energy. So I don't hate that. And then again, the Cornette situation, I think if Porzingis is totally fine, it's probably a moot point. We don't really even need to play a third big. But if we do, I think this could be a great opportunity to get a bigger look at Tillman. We saw some Tillman last series. I know I had mentioned to you off the air that I think the last time we played Dallas in March was one of Tillman's best games, maybe as a Celtic. So this could be a really good matchup for him, where I think he's exactly the kind of versatile big guy you might want to see in there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a different looking bench in this series, and a lot more Tillman and Brissett as opposed to maybe Hauser, Cornette, Pritchard. But Joe is also stubborn to change, and it's like at the end of the day, he kind of believes that everything we do is the right way, and he's not going to let other teams change it. That if we just kind of keep doing our thing, it'll be better than the other team's thing. So it'll be just kind of like an interesting chess match to watch there between the coaches, and especially that to me is a big thing to watch, how Joe handles the bench and the rotations and lineups in general.
Yeah, no, I think I wouldn't be surprised if we did see more O'Shea just because of like what you were saying. I think that he's a guy that, like, again, if Hauser's making shots, what he brings on offense is great. But I mean, if he's not, I mean, he's just basically like Brissett's the better player because he's not going to make the shots, but he can do it. He can do a lot of things on defense.
Better
though.
Everything else,
so.
Just can't shoot. If we could combine their
Imagine
skills.
if he could shoot. Oh my gosh, yeah, he would be. But yeah, so again, I'm rooting for Hauser specifically to kind of find his way again because I think it's been a rough go for him. I do agree with you too. Like, I feel like Pritchard's been the guy whose minutes have been pretty stable, but I don't know. Again, if he'll be a guy that they can have out there. Yeah, a lot. He plays bigger than his size, though. I think he deserves credit for that. But I agree. I think that this might be one where it might prove a little bit harder. I think the minutes that he gets, I think he'll have good minutes. Yeah,
like if Luka's the guy like
could be good, but I don't think it'll be plentiful.
Yeah, and it might be a situation where, try to throw him in the second that Luka rests. Obviously, Luka's not going to rest a lot, but maybe it's, Luka's taking a 3-minute rest to start the second quarter. Boom, Pritchard, go out there and give us the best 3 minutes you can possibly give us. Because I think, we saw LeBron kind of in his prime, I think was maybe one of the best ever. Just that pure matchup hunting relentlessly over and over and over again. And I think Luka is kind of his heir apparent in that regard, where every single play he will find his favorite matchup and he will go at it basically until the other team adjusts or subs that guy out. And I could, It scares me to think that could be our dear sweet Peyton. If,
no.
Joe leaves him out there to fend for himself. So.
Yeah, but I agree too with what you said too about Joe. I do feel like he can be a little bit like maybe like you said stubborn. Stubborn might be the word, but I do think it comes a lot to his thing where it's just like this is what we're gonna do. And this
stubborn's not necessarily bad.
No, well, yeah, no, it's not bad. But, all right, picks. I guess last thing, picks for the series. Where do we think the series is gonna go? What do you, Chud? What's your pick?
So I think it's the Celtics' time. I think it really is. I feel good. I feel confident. I feel the team is ready. Brown and Tatum are entering, if not in their primes. They've paid their dues and gotten their losses and earned their scars and whatever other dumb cliche that are kind of accurate you want to point out. They've done it. It's their moment. It's their time. I think Luka's still a couple years away from his time, which will also come. But I feel like, again, like I said earlier, this feels like when the Celtics first made it against the Warriors, but it wasn't quite their time. It feels like that's maybe more where the Mavericks are at. So I think it's going to happen. I really do. I'm picking the Celtics. I was going to pick Celtics in 5, and I would love to see them win it on their home court. But you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going to go back to the well. And for the 4th series in a row, Celtics in 4. I think they'll be close games, but I think we're better.
Wow.
I think there's going to be no letdown. I think we're going to see the best version of the Celtics. They're going to be so fired up and so just ready to do this. I think that's just going to be like an unstoppable force of energy. I think there will be some close games, but I think they will manage to pull them out, much like we saw in the Pacers game, and it'll be a well-earned, hard-fought sweep. Celtics in 4.
Wow. That's awesome that you stuck with the sweeps the whole way. Yeah, I think, again, I'm going to go with what my what my eyes and my gut are telling me, and not the brain, which gets polluted by all the extra noise. I'm going to go I think that the Mavs are good. I think that there's going to be at least a game that Luka's going to be able to steal, but I'm going to go Celtics in 5. Again, no disrespect to the Mavs. I think that they're a good team. They've had a great road. I do think that there's everyone's like, well, they're so tested. First of all, I mean, they've I think lost 2 more games than us or something like that. But I think that might also play against them too, where it's kind of like they might be a little bit more tired, and again, they might kind of almost feel like they've got it. Winning the West was just kind of like this huge challenge in itself. I'm going Celtics in 5, so both of us looks like things is going to be a relatively not easy but shorter series. So let's hope one of us is right. And
let's hope it's me.
Let's hope. I mean, yeah, if it's you, that'd be sick. I'd be totally pumped. That would be hilarious because then again, that would just fire up they weren't even really challenged. Fuck off.
Yeah.
All right. Sweet. So yeah, game 1 is Thursday. I don't know. I think we discussed maybe just doing a really short game 1 preview or something like that. Obviously, so we'll probably have maybe do something
Tuesday or Wednesday, especially maybe if we get some more concrete news about Porzingis or something else.
Yeah.
But
that's
a lot of time off, so yeah, we might have to come back and hit on a few more points.
Yeah.
Maybe a little deeper of a dive, even get deeper into some matchup stuff, some X's and O's, things like that. As we move down,
yeah. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the podcast.
Some red meat for the chuddy heads.
Yeah. Subscribe to the pod. You'll get those updates right. You get those notifications right away. Follow us at Chuddy's Corner on Twitter. Check out chuddyscorner.com. We got the merch store up there. And yeah, follow me at Doug_outs. Follow Chuddy at King Chuddy. And shout out to Nick Perino Real Estate. And yeah, go C's. Chuddy, take care.
Peace out, chuddy heads.